as the kids say,
Yeah.
is this team actually mid? Need that answer. Somebody drop a comment on this edition, and perhaps we'll continue the saga next week on Never Read the Comments.
We tried to warn them. They didn't listen.
Yeah!
Every week, the Hoffman Show goes into the belly of the beast.
We read those comments, baby.
Never read the comments.
This here live 3-hour radio program each and every day that airs between 4 and 7 on the Team 980 gets cut up into pieces because it's on video too, and we put it on the internet on YouTube at Craig Hoffman at the Team 980. Sometimes we even get comments from 1067 The Fans YouTube page on the Take Command show that I do with Logan Paulson, and then we respond to these here comments. And this week, as Vic Ferreira is in for Anthony Haney today, weird comments week, Vic. Not a usual slew. Not a ton of great ones on like any one particular topic. So we're gonna bounce around a little bit. It's a little sporadic edition of Never Read the Comments. Are you ready?
Always ready, yeah.
Yeah, Vic listens to this segment at home every week. So
every time?
Yeah, he's always ready. So Vic, you remember Matt Parrish, right?
Who?
Matt Parrish covered the Commanders.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for the Washington
Yeah.
Times. Now he's down in New Orleans, and he covers the Saints. And he came on the show last week, and we were talking about Alvin Kamara, and I had said like, "Hey, Alvin Kamara is not as effective as he used to be," and Matt was like, "Well, actually, he's having one of his best years ever," because we were kind of looking at it through different lenses. And we got a couple people that are like, "Oh, dang, he really checked you," including. We got this one from DBJ, which I think is funny because it's DB and then J is spelled out Jay. But anyway, DBJ 2817 says, "LOL, got checked on your own show." Called out.
Wow.
Called out. And look, he was on for Not My Beat, which is our segment where we have someone who's an expert on. And I was like, look, it's why we have the experts on. The segment's called Not My Beat for a reason. As someone who used to be a beat reporter and would go on shows and occasionally find a nice way to say, "Not so fast, my friend," I was like, I want a place where people can do that to me now that I'm just a guy who sits in a studio, although I still do a little reporting every now and then. And DBJ responds to that when I'm like, hey, this is called Not My Beat for a reason. Goes, "Hey, I love your show. I was just trying to make this week's segment of Never Read the Comments." So DBJ,
And he made it.
Yeah.
There you
I don't know
go.
whether I should have rewarded that behavior because I do feel like people, Vic, are fishing more and more to be in this segment.
You should give him a prize, even though it's not authorized by Odyssey. But
Yeah, your prize is
Yeah.
we can give free rounds of applause, right?
I mean, this is free. Yeah.
Hey, all right, DBJ, nice work out of you, I guess. This one from Sean Walker. So, Vic, this was another funny thing that happened this week. It was Tuesday because it was part of Vibe Check Tuesday. We had a caller, Saeed, call in and say, "Hey, this Commanders Falcons game that just got flexed into Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football next week, that could be Michael Penix's first start." And I was like, "There's no way that's going to be Michael Penix's first start because there's no way they're going to stick a rookie in the middle of the playoff race. Like, that would be insane." And sure enough, that night, the Falcons named Michael Penix their starter a week earlier than I said he wouldn't be named the starter. And so Sean goes, "You was 100% wrong on the Penix move," to which I responded, was I wrong or are they wrong? Which he thought was a good point. Maybe the Falcons messed it up, not me.
Yeah.
Because it is pretty crazy that they stuck a rookie in the middle of the playoff race, but I don't know. Kirk's playing some bad ball, so it's not a defense of Kirk Cousins. It's just like, is that really the best way to make your rookie quarterback succeed? But I guess if he's a better option, he's a better option.
On Sunday Night Football?
Well, he's playing this week against the Giants on a short week after they were on Monday Night Football. But, like, the Giants aren't an easy defense to prepare for, but they're also not a hard defense, and you only have to, like, not suck. If you just don't suck, you'll beat the Giants because their offense is horrendous. So, I guess it's a soft landing.
I mean, the Giants almost beat the Saints, so maybe the Giants have a chance to beat the Falcons.
The Saints aren't good either.
Well, you wouldn't have known it with Spencer Rattler.
I mean,
way
that kid
never
did
would've
some
known.
things. That kid did some things last week. You got to give some credit to Spencer Rattler. Last kind of funny one off the top here. We always start with, we call it the amuse-bouche, Vic. Paper Tags responded to something in our instant reaction show where the guest was none other than Chris Russell. But I talked about how the deep balls to Terry McLaurin were a little flatter than I feel like Jayden typically throws the ball down the field, and why the trajectory of the ball being high and arcing is so important, because it allows receivers more margin for error to run underneath it. And Paper Tags goes, I'm glad Craig explained deep ball trajectories and the advantage putting more air under the ball gives the receiver. I would have never figured that out on my own. But my question, Vic, is that what Paper Tags said? Or was it, I'm glad Craig explained deep ball trajectories and the advantage of putting more air under it. I would have never figured that out on my own. Like, is he making fun of me and mocking me, or do we think that's genuine thanks because it is the kind of thing that is slightly next level?
I'm just used to everyone trolling, so I always go the troll route.
Yeah. Because at first I was like, oh, that's very kind of him to say, and assuming the Paper Tags is him, maybe it's a lady. It's very kind of him or her to say. They are a subscriber at Craig Hoffman on YouTube, so maybe they're also a troll subscriber. Now, Paper Tags, if you watch this video, let me know. And even if you're being a troll, and congratulations, you made the segment.
Made the segment. That's all that matters.
Okay. Then there was this. Vic, the English language is a funny thing. Do you speak any other languages?
Hola.
That's the extent of your Spanish?
Adios.
Hola, adios. ¿Cómo estás?
Hasta la vista.
Baby. All right. The English language is full of all kinds of idiosyncrasies, and there's all these phrases that people use, and sometimes I don't think they know what they mean. You and me, 9569. First of all, what a screen name. Second, talking about the Saints game, says this game was all intent and purposes lost because of Cliff. Those are all English words. The phrase intents and purposes is a phrase that people use that has a specific meaning. That's barely a sentence, but let's run through this real quick. This game was all intent and purposes lost because of Cliff. That stupid play call at the 1-yard line not only energized the Saints and destroyed any momentum we had, you go up 21 after halftime, and they packed up and go home. Instead of trying to be cute with some dumb play call that requires McCaffrey to pretend like he was block and completely whiff, that led to Jalen getting hit. Again, Jalen is the Eagles quarterback. Jayden is the Commanders quarterback, but we're just going to keep it moving. That was so disrespectful and cost us this game. I didn't like that play call. So on a substantive level, I actually agree on some level with the criticism. And I specifically don't love it because Luke McCaffrey's in the game, where I think typically that play is run out of a different personnel grouping, where Zach Ertz is the one who is making that block. And if they do run it in the personnel grouping they did, then it is Noah Brown who is the receiver on the field, who is obviously out with that internal injury. And Noah's a veteran who's a bigger, stronger player who knows he has to tighten that split down even farther and understands that play at a deeper level because he's run it in the NFL before. And because they're running it with Luke in there, there's a huge mistake by McCaffrey, and it blows up the play. And it's not too cute. It's been one of their best plays all year. Running a bootleg where Jayden gets on the edge is how they've scored a ton of touchdowns in the red zone. So to say it's disrespectful is ridiculous. However, if I'm going to be Petty Paul here, we're going with something better than Petty Paul. Petty Paul's pretty good, actually.
Sure.
Another character, Vic? No? Nothing? We're going to go with Petty Paul.
Why not?
Petty Pablo, which is different than Petey Pablo. He wants you to wave your head or your shirt around your head just like a helicopter.
Yeah.
If we're Petty Pablo, then I'd like to nitpick the phrase or the part where he says, all intents and purposes, this game was lost because of Cliff. The phrase for intents and purposes, which is, by the way, intents and purposes, not intensive purposes, as some people sometimes say or write, means the intent, as in the intention or the purpose of the thing that you were describing. In this case, it is the game, right? The game was all intent and purposes lost because of Cliff. They won the game! I know this is not the most important thing ever, but Vic, I have to.
You would use it like if you get a first down with 2 minutes left to go and the other team doesn't have a timeout, then it,
For all intents and purposes, the game's
ends
over.
the game.
Yeah.
That's how you would use that.
Yeah, for the intent of the game, for the purpose of the game, the other team is not going to be able to
Correct.
score more points. It is essentially over.
It is over.
The main purpose of a football game is to score more points than the other team, and the Commanders did, so they can't, for all intents and purposes, lose a game that they won because
Right.
the main primary purpose of the game is... people get it. I just had to...
But was it Cliff Kingsbury's fault that Jayden missed on a couple of bombs to Terry McLaurin?
That was one of my other favorite
I mean-
criticisms of this game, which might even come up in some later comments, was like, man, Cliff's got to save some more for the second half. Cliff's got to call better plays. Oh, other than the ones where Terry is running butt naked down the field, where there's no one within 10 yards of him? Those plays?
They were right there.
By the way, even that play call on 3rd and 1 in the red zone. Do I love it? No, they'd had two of their best runs of the game on the previous 2 carries. Just keep running it. Shoot. I would take sticking a tight end under center and tush pushing. They were at like the 1 yard line. Whatever you got to do. Get the ball in there. But it has been one of their best plays all year. And they just didn't execute it. Sometimes good play calls don't get executed. That's football. So yeah, Cliff actually was, I thought, pretty good. And saved some stuff for the end. Like Cliff saved some haymakers, some knockout blows for the end, and he threw them, and Jayden wound up. And by the way, Jayden was really good on Sunday. But in this particular case, wound up, swing and a miss.
I mean, he even had the play call. If it wasn't for that holding, all intents and purposes, should have ended the game when they had that first down to, was it Zacchaeus?
It was to Diami.
Diami Brown.
And it was a correct but a ticky-tack holding. A correct ticky-tack holding call on Nick Allegretti.
That should, all intents and purposes, ended the game.
I see what you did there, Vic. I see what you did there. See, we attacked the style and the substance. Good job out of us. All right, some thoughts, by the way, speaking of, on Jayden Daniels and the 8 sacks. We did a segment on Take Command breaking down his performance, and the segment was titled on the internet, if you will, did Jayden Daniels secretly have one of his best games despite 8 sacks versus Saints? And Sid Show Bob, not Sideshow Bob, SYD, Vic, Sid Show Bob says, another thing no one is mentioning is that most of the sacks were minimal. 2 of them recorded as 0-yard sacks. How is that a sack? A 3 yard, a 4 yard, a 5 yard. Those are probably more good than bad on JD's part. He protects the ball and minimizes mistakes. He'll get better at throwing the ball away, but I'll take a 4-yard sack over an interception any day. And I think this is actually an interesting, nuanced comment from Sid Show Bob. A phrase,
Love
a
the
sentence that you only get on Never Read the Comments.
Think of The Simpsons.
Well then.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Sideshow.
no, all good.
Sideshow Bob.
Yeah. No, I believe it or not, Vic, I got it.
All right. Just make sure.
The thing is, like, a lot of young quarterbacks go through phases where they just throw tremendous amounts of interceptions. Where it's just like, that was, okay, other team again, son of a gun. I mean, Bo Nix is having a really nice season. He had 3 horrible interceptions on Sunday. They just were able to overcome it in their game against the Colts. Obviously, famously, Peyton Manning has the rookie record for interceptions. And so there's often a phase that young quarterbacks go through where they really just don't understand how to protect the football. And that is then followed up by a phase of their career where they're perhaps a little too conservative because they don't want to turn the football over. And that is an upgrade over turning it over. But then you find the happy medium where you can take certain chances, take certain risks in certain situations. You understand, I can make that throw and it's not going to be a turnover. I can't take that sack because it is really bad. I throw the ball away. And you just evolve as a player and as a quarterback over the course of your career. And Jayden Daniels, I think, skipped the first step in a lot of ways, which is fantastic. He has a really high ability and a really high propensity to not turn the football over. And yes, the sack thing is a thing. And if you look at guys like Josh Allen when they were younger, Lamar when he was younger, like they took a lot more sacks because it took them a couple years in the NFL to figure out how, when I'm under pressure, or if the clock is going off in my head that like the pocket's clean, but I know it's not going to be for much longer. And there's a little bit of space. How do I escape the pocket into the space while not running into the defensive tackle? And like Jalen Hurts has not figured that out in his career. Jalen Hurts and Joe Burrow have, I think it's pretty close to the same number of dropbacks this year. No, that wasn't the right guy. Jalen and Lamar. That's what the stat was. So Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson are fairly close in number of dropbacks and all those kinds of things this year, but they have the exact same time to throw. They are both like 3.14 seconds, which is tied for the longest time to throw in the league from snap to throw, which tells you they both sit back there for a while. Jalen has taken 38 sacks this year. Lamar has taken 21. 21.
Is there a difference between Sam Howell taking all those sacks last year to Jayden Daniels taking all these sacks? Is there a difference?
Yeah, I mean, I think you see, well, one, I don't think Jayden has been like this in every game, right? Like Sam was like this in every game. It's who he is. He takes 4 sacks in a quarter and a half in Seattle the other day, and all of a sudden now, even those of us that have perhaps been a little Geno Smith haterish over the years, we're like, hey, Geno Smith might be pretty good, because if that's what another dude is doing, holy crap. But it is that, like, when the pocket gets muddy, or there's a little bit of space that you might be able to escape to, that you need to extend the play. How do you get to safe space? And guys like Allen and Jackson understand little slide. I mean, Burrow's become excellent at this. Burrow took a ton of sacks earlier in his career. He's become really good at just a little bit of subtle pocket movement. Let me find the space where I can step up and step into a throw. And even if that throw is to my check down, which Jayden had one of these last week, he found a little bit of space and jumped over the pressure in his face and hit B-Rob on a check down. That turns, if he forces a throw somewhere else, to the commenter, Sid Showbob's point, maybe it's interception. Often, other times this year, Jayden would try to run with that, and he'd run into a defensive lineman, and it turns into a 3-yard sack. Right? It's not one where he's running back or he's getting pushed back in the pocket and taking a 9-yard sack, but he's taking a 3-yard sack because he's trying to run forward and he's not going to make it. But if you can slide a little bit and then dump one over to your check down, now we're in business. Or if you can find the clean alley out of the pocket and you get on the edge and you keep your eyes downfield, you can get a big play down the field with your arm. Or Jayden, we know, is a very good runner, and he had 60-plus yards rushing in the Saints game as well. So I think it is a progression. It can be a learned skill, but I think it's a really interesting point to kind of point the midpoint between the really bad stuff that young quarterbacks do and the really great stuff that a lot of veteran quarterbacks do is kind of this middle ground where Jayden Daniels lives right now. Other big one this week on that topic. 09 Ashley Mee says, being honest, how many QBs in the NFL are dealing with pressure the way you expect Jayden to? Like, who's the team that just expects their quarterback to handle pressure? Teams go out and spend valuable assets on O-line, wide receivers, tight ends, running backs for a reason, so they can protect their QB. Their QB can have open people to throw the ball to, and they can have a running game. The level of QB play you're describing, where a quarterback easily deals with pressure, decisively handles situations where no one is open, and easily navigates situations where they are under pressure, isn't a thing. Yeah, it's cool to blame the QB and say that he should improve, but the real solution is to get better players around him. What would Joe Burrow be without Jamar and T. Higgins? What would Tua be without Hill and Waddle? What was Josh Allen doing before the Bills traded for Amari Cooper? So, on a large level, I actually agree with this comment that you do need to make sure that you provide your quarterback a good ecosystem for them to deal with. But you also do rely on your quarterback to deal with pressure. And it's because you can't pay everybody. And once you pay the quarterback, you especially can't pay everybody. Like, and I just talked about this, and obviously this comment was in response to me talking about Jayden and the sacks, and Logan and I talking about Jayden and the sacks earlier in the week, not in direct response to the thing I just said, which isn't up on the internet yet, except for on the live stream where we're streaming right now. That would have been a hell of a comment to type in real time, though, Vic, I got to say. There are quarterbacks that improve in this area. I mean, Tua, their offensive line is terrible from a personnel standpoint. Yes, he has Hill and Waddle, but they rely on Tua to deal with pressure and get the ball out. And it's why when Tua went out with Hill and Waddle still in the game for Miami, every other quarterback they plugged in there was just absolutely terrible. Because Tua's really special at knowing where to go, and he's got a quick release, and he hits his third step, and he gets the ball out now. Joe Burrow, same thing. Their offensive line has been questionable at times. They do have the outside receiving talent, but they are relying on him to deal with the pressure. Brady forever, he was a guy who dealt with a lot of pressure very, very well. It moved around the pocket, even though he's not like the scrambler type, but his pocket movement was maybe the best ever. It was like a superpower for him. And so what we're talking about here is a realization that, yes, to just do it all the time is unreasonable. But to do it all at a high level frequently is what it takes to be the best of the best. Like, what do you want Jayden Daniels to be? Do you want him to be okay? Do you want him to be the 12th best quarterback? Do you want him to be the 14th best quarterback in the league? Or do you want him to be the 5th best quarterback or the 3rd best quarterback or the best quarterback in the league? Because if he's going to be the best, this is the standard. And it's not to say that, like, if he doesn't reach that, he's a failure and they can't win a bunch of games. It's just like, that's the standard. When we break down the tape and we talk about this stuff, it's because, hey, here's an area where he's currently doing okay, but if he learns to do better, now we're talking about a guy who's in the MVP conversation, which I think when you take a quarterback at number 2 overall, especially when he's got the talent of Jayden and has shown what Jayden has shown so far, I think that's ultimately the goal. All right, last couple of things. We always end with some fun ones, Vic. We had a caller who called in last week. We were talking about whether or not the Commanders should pursue Odell Beckham, and the caller called OBJ a Madonna. Not a prima donna, a Madonna. And Recoiling Death Spasm, I don't make them up, I just read them. Recoiling Death Spasm says, if OBJ really is a Madonna, could he help us get into the groove after the bye week?
Nice.
That's
Very
good.
nice.
Get into the groove. Yeah. T-Dog, talking about the Commanders, says, as the kids say these days, this team is mid. To which Carlos Allen replied, better than being booty cheeks.
All right.
And if T-Dog, of course, replied, I can understand that. I can understand that. Yeah. Mid, greater than sign, booty cheeks.
All right.
I need a millennial, or not a millennial. I'm a millennial. I need a Gen Zer to let me know. Can you be mid if you're on the ascent? Like, if you're at the bottom and you're ascending, you're going to have to pass through the middle. But are you mid? I think of mid more as like, that's kind of who you are. And there's not a trajectory arrow. You're just kind of stuck. So, as the kids say,
yeah.
Is this team actually mid? Need that answer. Somebody drop a comment on this edition, and perhaps we'll continue the saga next week on Never Read the Comments.